So, Brant, your books, like Unoffendable, your new one, The Truth About Us, they're super applicable to a topic that we all love, which is politics and disagreements.
Totally.
And all that stuff. And obviously, these are important issues that we're talking about. And I'm sure that you have a lot of thoughts on it, just like everyone, but it's a landmine topic, right? Like, somebody's going to get mad. And you have a radio show. And you kind of avoid this topic
I do.
a lot on the show,
I totally
right?
do, yeah.
So why, like, what's the reason behind that? And like,
a couple. I mean, it's a great question, but there's a couple. Number one, that's not what I feel like I'm chartered to do on this. I've done talk radio before, and that's what you do. And in this format, that's not what people are looking for. And I get to talk about something better. Like, where else do people talk about the other kingdom? It's always about the battle over this one and this kind of power. And here's Jesus saying, my kingdom's not of this world. And people were angry at him for not doing it. Like, don't you see the injustice? Don't you see the problems here? Don't you see the Romans are occupying this? There's infanticide going on. There's all these different things that go on. All of them are important. It's not that God doesn't care, but he kept talking about how there's a different kingdom and it's a beautiful one. Well, I want to talk about that because they're not doing that. Maybe you've noticed, like on the cable news networks, it's not like this is a real thing. If I'm a believer in Jesus, that's his favorite topic is the kingdom of God. And he's always showing it as like a polar opposite of the kingdom of man that people are struggling over. Like there's something that moves in our hearts that makes the world better. And I think if we are surrendered to him, things will get better. So people who are into politics or they're politicians, I appreciate that. People are well-meaning on all sides. I get it. Go for it. But I'd like to have some place where we can talk about this other kingdom that's even better. And by the way, it's going to last a lot longer than our temporary battles. So I think that's why we don't talk about it on the air. There's another reason, which is I'm not going to convince anybody of anything. I'm just not.
Yeah.
So that's something, too, to realize if you're on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and you're arguing with somebody, it doesn't work.
Do you think it can ever work online? You see so much conversation in so many different forms about hot topics, you know? So is there, have you found a way that's constructive at all?
No, I haven't. Blanket statement.
Maybe you would be
never,
ever. One instance, this one
never
way.
Has, not once. No, it's like that. Well, of course, there's an outlier event where somebody's like, "Eureka! You're right. I took this, this position. You showed me the light through reason. Therefore, ergo, I was wrong. Thank you." I suppose that has happened before, but that's not how people work. We are not convinced by rational argument like we think we are, and that's true for people who fancy themselves really intelligent. In fact, really intelligent people are more likely to become deeply wrong. And here's what I mean by this. If you actually find how people make decisions, and there's lots of social science on this, but they have found, let's say I have a position on an issue, and you say, Brant, that's cool. Write down the positions why you're right, the reasons why you're right, and then on this piece of paper, write down what other people would say about from why they're right and you're wrong. I could make a list here, make a list there. When they've studied people based on education level or IQ, they don't get better at this list. They only are better at coming up with more reasons why they're right. They don't get more empathetic. They're not able to put themselves in the other person's arguments. So it just deeply entrenches you because you're so smart, you can come up with more reasons why you're right to justify your position you already hold.
And it's so easy to do that because there's so many opinions out there.
Oh, sure,
and with the internet especially, it's just, especially when you disagree with something or something makes you uncomfortable, you're automatically just like, well, here are all my check boxes.
Yeah.
And you're always like looking for well, this supports
absolutely
what I'm thinking, and this supports what I'm feeling. And then sometimes you forget to think about the other side,
absolutely.
And have empathy.
I'm blown away by that. I have positions. I'm going to get into my politics. But I have positions I see cartoonized all the time. Like I must be a complete idiot. I clearly haven't had an education. Like how could I possibly? I'm like, but you don't even understand my arguments. So it is frustrating. That said, look, this is how we work. I had mentioned this before, but Jonathan Haidt is a professor at New York University, talks about how we're really driven by this elephant, and we're all our rationality is sitting on this elephant. The elephant goes wherever it wants, and it's our emotions and our intuitions. So if I'm already on a side, I picked a side. I'm emotionally, intuitively on that side. And if any new information comes my way, I ask myself, if it agrees with me, if it verifies my side, I ask, can I believe this? That's my threshold. Can I believe it? But if it's against me, I go, do I have to believe this? Those are totally two different standards of understanding. Like if something in my news feed backs up what I think about how evil those other people are, I'm like, I'm sold. I don't even need another input. I mean, that's all I need is that one article. But if it's something that is impugning me, I'm going to need like 15 articles before I'll even consider it. Because do I have to believe this? So we have a lower threshold for our own understanding and agreement. But the other thing he's saying, our intuitions and emotions take our rationality along for a ride. And the only way that gets turned around is not an argument on Facebook. This elephant is going to stampede that direction. Your intuitions, have you identified yourself? You're going to go this direction. The only way that elephant ever starts to turn is a thing Jonathan Haidt calls relationships. So if I know you and I trust you and we're friends and you start to say something and I'm like, I've never thought about it that way before, that elephant starts to lean that direction where I might be able to consider this idea. Doesn't happen in a Facebook thread. It happens with knowing you for a while and for you to go, hey, Brant, have you ever thought about this? I know you're really wound up about this issue. I'm not, but I want you to know why. Well, if Reby says that, I trust Reby. And Jonathan Haidt, atheist, is going, that's the only way you ever convince anybody of anything. You have to become one of them. You've got to be with them. You got to be trustworthy. None of this takes place outside of incarnational relationship.
And if you flip that around and think about somebody coming at you.
Right.
Like it's true. The only time that maybe I've grown or changed in any kind of opinion, it's with like a pretty long process.
It is.
Talking it out.
Yes.
Researching, of course.
Right.
But like it often sparks from a relationship or the real change comes from
somebody you trusted.
Yes.
No one's going to turn on. If they're a MSNBC fan, they don't turn on Fox and go, Eureka. I've been misled. Vice versa. They're not Fox and suddenly MSN. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, the scales have clear. Like that's not how we work. It's relationship. And it's good to acknowledge that because if I really love somebody and I really think something is important, I can't get the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah. I'm
realizing you're using a lot of animal analogies here with elephants and carts and horses.
Elephants.
Right. Don't get the elephant ahead of the cart that's in front of them. But like if it's really important for me to understand that relationally, if I love somebody, it's going to be me giving first relationally over time. And then they'll start to go, and I've seen that happen. I don't even talk to somebody about the particular issue, but they're starting to go, okay, Brant's not an idiot. And
yeah, because there's a mutual respect there. Like,
yeah. And you have these conversations where like, I never thought about it that way before. And like, well, thanks. I appreciate your point of view on this too. Like now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. So what's the role of the Christian, the person of faith in the world of politics right now?
The answer is going to vary. I know everybody's got their own opinions.
That is true, actually. Depends on your position and everything. Yeah.
I do love the idea that Jesus, when he was on the earth, had just as important issues going on. We tend to think, we're very chronocentric, or we think the time we live in is like, it's never been like this before. We're living in a time of just crisis where we've never had this. All the human problems date back to when Jesus was walking the earth, it was happening. There was a king who killed all the 2-year-olds and under, for instance, when Jesus was born. There was infanticide going on. It doesn't make it right, clearly. There's Roman occupation. There's an intense racism. All of that stuff. And Jesus could have attacked it structurally by going straight to Rome and knocking everything down and becoming the king over the powers of the earth. Like, see, now I'm in charge. Satan even tempted him to do that. Go ahead, do it. You'll be in charge. You'll do it. All you need is the power. Once you get the power, people will see how awesome you are. Just go ahead and do it. And his answer was not that way. That's not the way I'm king. I am the king, but it's not going to happen this way. So I do think that's important, whatever you're liberal, conservative, left, right, whatever. I do think it's important to look at Jesus and take our cue from him and go, he's all about this other kingdom. How much do we value that? And he's the way, the truth, and the life. The way we do things matters. So to just say, if I achieve this political objective, even if it's a perfectly just thing or something that sounds gloriously right, how are we doing that? We take a step back and go, maybe not that way. So I just think it's worth thinking about. I know people have all sorts of disagreements, but I do think that that's a good way for us to forge a little more unity, is to go, actually, the kingdom we're all supposed to be working for isn't of this world. So how can we be brothers and sisters and go from there about this other kingdom?
Starting from there changes a lot.
Totally.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, that Jesus came to reestablish relationship with us too, right?
Yes.
Funny. We're talking about relationship.
Yes.
It's like, let's take a cue. And regardless of your platform, I think we can all just start there. Maybe there's just a few people that we can talk to.
Totally.
And we can find that mutual respect
He
with, right?
became like us. And the other thing is, he's the king, right? The king of kings. And he comes as a baby in a barn or in a cave, in a manger. It's like, what can we take from that about power and the way we do things? Like, he could have done it that way. He could have done it our way. He said, that's not how I'm doing it.